Welcome back to another episode of Adventures in Business. This is Happy Podcast Wednesday. How you doing, Lisa?
Amy, I'm doing great. I love that introduction. It's so funny because it's like, how do we mix things up? And then you
Right.
give me this because all I'm thinking is it's kickball season, and I know you got a
It
team going
is.
on.
That's
Tell us
true.
what's about that.
Yeah, so tonight, which the day of our recording, which is April 26th, is our first kickball game. And it's a fun adult like beer league. We just have fun and we're not all that great, but it's in the Delta Township. So we play at Sharp Park behind the Lansing Mall, and there's 6 teams total. And we just get together and have fun and run around the bases and try to hit each other with this big giant red ball and have fun. So yeah, it's also networking too because there's a lot of other business owners that play and different things. So it's fun, but at least we get out there and run around and be dumb. So
I love it. I
yeah.
love it. I'm glad to hear that you're doing something fun like that. And I don't know if I could run. I think, you
Oh well,
know.
I'm not sure it's exactly required. I mean, it's just we just have fun.
Oh, fantastic,
Yeah,
fantastic. Well, thanks for sharing.
yeah.
I know I'm super excited about our guest today. And so, anything else you want to announce before we move in?
No, I'm good. I mean, I got my summit, but there's an ad later in the show for that, so people are, they know all about that. Hopefully,
It's getting closer. It's
it
getting
is. It
closer.
is. Yeah.
Good,
Yeah.
good.
So who we got today?
Today we have Kelly Duggan, and Kelly is the president and founder of Kelly Duggan Image Consulting LLC, which has been helping executives and their organizations make their best impression since 1999. She is a certified image manager, coach, speaker, and consultant. So before I say welcome, Kelly, I we met at a networking event.
We did.
So, welcome to the show. And, we've done things together pre-COVID where we have brought some information to the community and to some
Mhm.
business owners. But tell us about your organization.
Well, thank you, Lisa. I appreciate that. So, what I say, I'm lucky a hobby business with a real passion became a real business. Actually, I have a dental background. I was a dental hygienist turned image consultant. So, I started in the girly fun makeover land of the image industry, but I soon found what resonated with me and what seemed to work best in the area, the region I was in to really head towards professional presence development. So through the years, that's where my trainings, my certifications, and so forth kind of grew and led. So, I've worked with a variety of industries. I say image is a part of everything. I've worked with a hockey league and a concrete company to hospitals and financial organizations. So it's kind of across the board within that thought. So, and really where my specialty is, it is in that personal and executive presence, business etiquette, and communication soft skills.
Wow, that's grown over the years, I wanna say, right? When I
It sure
first
has.
the image consulting was the key, the foundational piece, and you've added so much more. Congratulations.
Mhm.
But,
Thank you.
tell us a little bit about that personal branding, that personal image that you're speaking of.
What I do in my work when we think about developing a presence that supports you, whether it's personal or for professional reasons, that it backs into really a lot of what we're hearing today. I say the image industry's been doing this for quite some time. It's like we really believe in authentic presence. So in my process of just individual personal style work or full branding processes, it really backs into a systematic approach of aligning your own physical characteristic traits to your inner self, your likes, your dislikes. If you've had your Myers Briggs or DISC or any of those things done, considering, and when we move into the thought of the personal branding piece of it, it's really thinking about where you want to be, go, succeed, who your audience, who you're in front of, and how you can best present and position yourself for the successes that you want to gain.
I really love how you said dressing for your audience, right? That is
Mhm.
a lot of dress for success because I would say, I can't go into a manufacturing company to do a training on leadership in manufacturing with the frontline leaders in a dress and nylons, right? I mean,
Mhm,
and I'm
mhm.
certainly not going to wear the jeans, but you dress for the audience that you're presenting to. And it's amazing how more relatable that you are with those folks
Mhm.
and able to attract them. And with that being said, it's really, I think of Amy and her brand archetype. I went through her brand archetype exercises in her program. And with that, you identify, what archetype you are, and colors play a very big role in
Mhm.
that from the branding. So
Yes.
taking
Mhm.
the logo and the image, the business branding into tying in the image, I think that could be a
Exactly. I mean, people
secret.
don't realize how, what's the right word? I mean, color communicates
Yeah.
for us. It speaks volumes before you've ever said anything. And the same with your visual presence or
Mhm.
say the tone of your voice,
Mhm.
which is a whole nother realm of the last couple of years I've been training in voice. So how to use your voice more as a musical instrument and using it in your presence development. And that same thought of, dressing for your audience, speaking for your
Mhm.
audience. So, yeah, I
Mhm.
know a story comes to mind when you're talking about that years ago when I was out networking. I had a gal I'd met and she's, well, I'm all done with suits. I told her what I did. She's, well, I'm all done with suits. And I think that's a misnomer, a myth to think that image consulting is about having you be dressed up.
Mm-mm.
It's not. It's
Mm-mm.
it's understanding again who you're in front of, what you want to achieve. And she had left corporate to become a barista, so she'd look pretty silly in a suit
Right.
making coffee drinks. So it's you know
What was she the owner of the coffee shop?
she was not.
Mhm.
Excellent point though,
Mhm.
because I have seen other industries, people representing out networking,
Right.
um, say yoga or fitness, and they come to
Yeah.
networking events in their yoga and fitness gear, which,
Right.
it's their brand. But I mean, that's where you want to maybe consider if it's I was just recently at an open networking event that was at a microbrewery and it was outdoors and so forth. Yoga gear, whatever that's not as dressed up was probably fine for there. But if you're
Right.
heading into a higher level dinner meeting or something, potentially more professional attire and your business card could represent your logo for you.
Right. Yeah. So I get asked a lot with my branding that Lisa was talking about the difference
Mhm.
between personal brand and a business brand. So that's a big question that people have a lot. But I would argue that you can stay on brand all the time for your
Hmm.
personal brand, no matter who your audience is
Right.
within your brand. So there's
Hmm.
levels, right? Like you were saying, like you could
Hmm.
still go to that dinner meeting as a yoga person and dress it up a bit,
Hmm.
but you can still be that more that athletic wear kind of thing,
Hmm.
staying within your brand. So like I'm the
Hmm.
mobstress of marketing, so I had a full custom mobster suit made
Okay,
for
I
me
love it.
that I wear when I
Awesome.
present.
That's brand.
Yeah. Yeah. But I don't dress like that every single day because I
Hmm.
just have the one suit. But I
Hmm.
wear my hat a lot and stuff.
Hmm.
So that's really
Hmm.
interesting. But I love that you said the way you talk and the way you answer the phone. Because when I say to people, your brand should permeate everything you do, I mean
Right.
everything,
Hmm.
including how you answer the phone, your voicemail message, the color you paint your office, like everything. Right.
Mhm, mhm,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah, and in personal brand development, I say it's an extension of you, even if you're
Hmm.
using it for
Mhm.
professional reasons, career success, entrepreneurship, whatever, it's still the core, the foundation of just who you are.
Right.
So, in my personal style work that goes into branding, again, where we look at it deeper and broader and more strategically, but still it backs into what colors, what proportion and line of garments, what style, what levels of dress. Most of us should probably be dancing between 2 to 3 levels of dress that you have available to wear, from more formal to casual,
Hmm.
depending on whatever the most formal is for you.
Right.
It depends on the industry you're in and what you're doing. And another side note on that I would say too is to think like people might be thinking, well, I got to change my clothes a lot, and that's not true. Like many moons ago, I had a realtor come to me for assistance, and she felt like she needed to change her clothes from the farmer that she was out with to coming into town to, I think she did some commercial work too. And it's like, well, no, you don't need, she carried like 2 or 3 outfits in her car with her and felt like she needed to fully change outfits for these different demographics of, the audiences that she was in front of. And it's like, maybe you could just do it with the thought of old days of where the guys in their office could slip on a sports coat if they needed to up their ante in their dress. So couldn't you maybe wear, some mud mucking boots or something that you could put on, wear a pant that's tapered enough that you could tuck your pants into a boot that could help you go walk the farm and so forth, and not feel like you have to fully change your outfit. So
you had done a couple of our different, almost like a little fashion show, right? Helping people to understand how to layer, how to do different garments, pick colors, even pick sizes, that are more flattering to them. And so
Right.
from that image perspective, tell us a little bit about your process, because I know I want to ask about the voice thing too, but right now from the image perspective, what is your process? How does that work?
My process when I'm meeting with an individual is I have a strategy call first to learn, the specifics of what the situation is, and this would be, individually and or with businesses or companies. So learn, what their pains are, what they're going through, what they want to accomplish, maybe what they've done already to, try to take care of the challenge that they might be faced with. And then individuals from there move into what I call a launch session. It's that first step of my coaching work where we start to understand who it is that they're in front of and what they want to achieve, what have been their successes and what they want to grow and do. And then what I say is you can shape yourself as that heat-seeking missile to help get it done. And I say that it works because that's precisely what I've done. That's how I've, built my business. Again, I was a dental hygienist, all of a sudden stumbled into the image industry, and all of a sudden I got a business. And, when I was initially starting, I was doing some speaking just more for my individual personal style services. The whole coaching and training side of my business morphed because I would say I positioned my personal brand well. I was doing what I was doing. I was speaking for marketing purposes, and all of a sudden I started getting companies contacting me saying, hey, do you do this in-house? And all of a sudden, voila, I had this training and coaching side to my business. So then, back into that thought of, shaping that presence to support it. So really, ultimately, that's what I do with my clients. We can draw kind of within that wheelhouse of the services that I offer. The training, coaching, content comes out of when you think about how you think, look, act, speak, and dress, because my belief is that you create a total presence. You don't just look great. We've all met somebody who looked great, and then later you had enough time with them, you experienced them, and they weren't all that you thought that they were. Or vice versa, where you didn't give somebody the time of day. And maybe they were lucky enough that life slowed down enough. I mean, we live in a really super fast paced world. Maybe you had enough touches with them at different times to realize that they had great gifts and talents and were a wonderful person. Now through the times as we become more casual, that's not as, high risk of a situation as it was, because we have gotten more casual when we think about dress. But still, it could create risks that are undue.
Yeah. Well, we have that small window of opportunity to make that first impression, right?
Yes.
So how do you have statistics on that? I know I'm just speaking off the cuff, but what is that? You walk into a room and that
Yeah,
first
what they
impression.
say, first impression, what they say is, and this is old news, it's been updated. I believe I know the resource on the second update, but 7 to 20 seconds. So I always say when I'm doing programs, like, oh, you already decided if I had anything to offer or not before I ever open my mouth up. So, and again, it was my business brand, my personal brand, all that supported and again, opened ears to hear what I had to say, or it could shut it down.
When you're working with people on their personal brand, one-on-one, more than just a whole organization, can you speak to what are some of the biggest differences between helping a woman versus a man with their personal branding?
I would say that women tend to be a little bit more reluctant about it. Men seem to charge right in and want to know all the specifics and take it and go. Women take it, I think, a little bit more personally and internally because it is a reflection on how, like the tool that I use. I'm certified in 360 Reach personal brand assessment tool through Career Blast now. It was just Reach, but now it's Career Blast. But through that process, you define what you feel, how you're perceived, but then you anonymously do this 360 approach, which I love about Reach 360 is that it's, or 360 Reach is that it's a qualitative survey. It's not quantitative. And it also goes out. So it's not just to say your coworkers, if you're doing a 360 at work and so forth. This allows you to bounce these questions off from people who know you personally, privately, but you've got to have thick enough skin to hear the responses too. And that's where I see that women tend to get upset on some things or want to just, step over it and not face it more than men.
Mhm.
Not to
Well,
say that men don't as well, but
well, I think as women, we're judged more by our outward appearance than men are in general.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
We've just been taught that
So,
it matters more.
right. Yeah, I would say so as well.
Mhm.
So, talk about a little bit of imaging. You talked about today's day and age, we're a little bit more relaxed, but also we're more on Zoom, we're more
Mhm,
digital, we're reels, we're videos.
mhm, mhm.
What would be some tips and best practices for people that are where image is so important, but how do we do that in the digital space?
In the digital space, what I would say is obviously you want to be seen and heard first. So, great lighting, microphones, what we're doing here today, and so forth. I have my nice little Blue Yeti mic and so forth to make me sound really good. And, but when you think about on camera, the position of your computer. We don't want to be looking up at the ceiling or up your nose. Make sure that it's at a good level so you can look straight on. Determine ahead of time where you need to face. So if you're going to be on camera, that I don't look like I'm talking to somebody else, versus talking to the camera, which can be tricky. I mean, that's something I've really,
Mhm.
had to work on. Um, what you want is in dress, even if you are out and about in person with people, but I think particularly on camera, that what I call the magic Y. So I have a V-neck shirt on, or if you put a layer over, what it does, it just strengthens the focus to come into the business zone. So it's this inverted triangle. Get my fingers going right with my camera that leads the eye in and up to the face. Because in business, you want the attention to come to your face and your eyes, and then to what you have to say
Mhm.
on camera or to what all you might be doing or demonstrating if you were out in person.
Nice.
Um, yeah. And then simple. You don't need a lot. Solid colors are better. Black and white don't, if it's solid, when you don't have the neckline showing and so forth too,
Mhm.
don't, uh, what's the word? Don't resonate well on camera.
Yeah.
Blues, pastels are good for a few quick tips.
Very cool. Very good. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
So tell us a little bit voice and how did voice incorporate into the image? You started out with, like you said, the glamour, the
Mhm,
beauty, the uh,
mhm.
image, but share with us about voice.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Good question. So, what I found was I had started teaching on it because, again, my background is in where it started appearance focus, but again, to really craft a great impression and support that personal brand growth and succeed in all that you want to do is like my core belief is that you need to develop that total presence. Again, it's how you think, look, act, speak, and dress. I am not an English major or a voice person of like exactly what you should say, but how you can say it and use your voice. That's what I've been studying more intently the last couple of years with voice place. So when you think about pitch, pace, volume, are you talking in a monochromatic voice? This would be a really, really boring interview if all I did was talk like this.
Right.
So for myself personally, again, I practice what I preach.
Mm-hmm.
Really working on, my chest voice, my middle voice, my head voice to add some melody to my voice. So again, I had, basics that I self-studied, or I'm a member of an international image organization. And if you're certified with them, which I am, it is on appearance, behavior, and communications. So through AICI, the Association of Image Consultants International, I have done voice training with them. So I had incorporated a little bit, but then again, through COVID, I was looking for, ways to study and some things, and had heard about Voice Place and a Speakers Guild program that I'm a part of. And so that's been a part of what I've been doing.
Yeah, I love that. And we don't have a editor like we have on this show to walk around behind us and edit out all of our likes and and things like that when we talk. So I'm so
Yes.
aware of that so much more by having done podcasting, and then when I'm just talking to people, I'm aware of that too. So Lisa and I actually met through Dale Carnegie, and
Okay.
that program teaches you a lot about how to talk in front of people. And one of the key takeaways for me in that whole program was how to say your name when you're introducing yourself to somebody. And I think about that all the time when I'm networking, because I think the majority of people need to practice this, because you only have, like Lisa, like you were saying, you only have that few seconds to make that first impression. And if you don't say your name clearly and the person has to ask you to repeat it, that's a little bit frustrating. So they taught us to put the emphasis on your last name. So, hi, I'm Amy Zander. Right. I mean, that maybe sounded a little bit more aggressively than I meant it to, but and that pause. Right. And we practice that in class, and I find that really effective, especially in open networking situations.
That's a great point. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, and even, there's the language of sales, right? There's neurolinguistic programming that talks about different language skills in terms of how you say things, where you put the pauses and the breaks. And it's very important and it's impactful when we start thinking of embedded commands and different things like that. And when you were talking about voice, I distinctly remember in my training for coaching, our coach, we had a woman that would stand up and give testimonial, because when she was applying to be a coach for this program, of course, that in that day and time, everything was over the phone. So your tone was all they heard. And she had a very high, squeaky tone. And the hiring company recommended that she go through some voice training, and she's a phenomenal coach, but totally her testimonial to the coaching skills groups is I needed to make this change to be taken more serious, for people to listen to what I was saying. So there's so much value in our tone and how we're saying things. And Amy brought up networking. So listeners, if you're out networking and you're in a room, use your outside voice, be bold, stand up where people can hear you, because sometimes we go to these groups and people will talk, "Hi, my name is Lisa Fisher," and I can't hear you, and it's,
Right.
so
Yes,
then I find
exactly.
myself doing the smiling nod.
Yes, you're correct. Yeah. Please say that again.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's just so much value in using your voice, not just using it properly, but also using it to advocate for yourselves. So what might coaching with you on voice look like? What is we did the image process. What would your process for that look like?
What I would say is we'd walk into that same step of the launch session, and you really understanding again who your audience is and what you're wanting to accomplish. And then from there, either through some initial assessments of reading and listening, some initial self-critiques and critiques on it to hear, what the individual themselves really feels their issues are and so forth. And then from there, it's going to vary a bit depending on the individual and what their needs are. Now, I know I just had a coaching client send me links to some videos for some meetings that she was in. One, she was giving a president's report. The other was just a general type of board meeting that was recorded. And so she could share those links, and we critiqued through them. So in this situation, this is a client who's been working on some things for a little bit, but within it still there, it was interesting to see the difference and be able to help her from when she was on and giving her report to just being and participating in the board meeting itself. There was a difference. So for her, it's like really looking at like what could she bring into that just general board meeting vocal performance per se, for lack of a better word, that could help her like she used it in the actual report that she gave. You could tell she was very passionate about what she gave in that report, where the other was much more just a mundane, I'm here. It was probably really early in the morning and got a bazillion things to do,
Right.
and, that type of thing. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, if you're not in like entertainment or podcasting or television or something like that, I doubt most people really ever listen to themselves speak on a recording.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know a lot more people are doing Instagram reels and things like that. So those are short little clips, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, Lisa, have you ever gone back and listened to some of our early shows?
Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting, but we get so much better, right? We really do, because we learn and we practice, and it's all about practicing. But if you're not really critiquing yourself like that,
Mhm.
you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so
Yeah.
interesting.
True.
So before we wrap up, Kelly, I want to touch a little bit, because we've talked mostly this show about you coaching people one-on-one, and I know that you do corporate imaging and things like that. So I wanted to give you a chance to talk about how you work with businesses doing the same types of things.
Okay, thank you. Again, a variety of ways. My work it's not a set cookie cutter way. So we, do that discovery and learn what they're up against, what they're wanting to do. So in varying types of work that I've done, and like I had a male CEO who came to me. He wasn't quite sure what to do. They'd been working with a communications coach, but their younger interns were coming in with too low of blouses and too high of slits in the skirts. So rather than just targeting her, his request was to come in and work with his team as a whole. Again, really, it wasn't focused on personal brand development and supporting the brand of the company, but that's what it became truthfully about. So we did a workshop to the full staff talking about, that whole visual impact piece, the importance of presence, a combination again of total presence of how you look, act, speak, and dress. But then we moved it into a 3-part dress workshop series for the gals. So yeah, we didn't pigeonhole just the one person. We taught good sound wardrobing, personal style development to the team as a whole, and it was fun. So it was kind of a team building event too. So they could kind of banter back and forth on what their style was and have fun, but yet we made a difference in how they visually presented. And then I did one dress workshop for the gentlemen on that. So other companies, what I really love to be is a resource, a multi-pronged resource. So I have done work where I came in and did secret shopping on the front desk. Then because they were considering hiring a gal for a new front desk position. And then once we did that, then they brought me in to work one-on-one with her. They gave her a stipend for some garments as well. And through that time, I also did some dress code policy work for them. They were a company at that time that was kind of repositioning their brand as a whole. They had acquired another floor in a building. So there are going to be 3 levels versus just 2 levels within this building. And then after that, they brought me in for workshops and trainings, a few different ones. dress and, like what we think of image of dress and appearance focus, but also we did nonverbal communication. And then sadly, my gal that I worked with passed away from cancer. Yeah, and they rehired somebody and they brought me back in to work with her one-on-one. So that's a wonderful thing. So, so from corporate, I've done leadership programs, been a part of leadership programs. Right now, I just scheduled to get back in with Kellogg Young Professionals. Going to be working with them. So again, a variety of industries though, because I've done conferences like for Hockey Association, team development days for concrete companies to banking.
Nice.
Yeah, that was going to be my follow-up question. Is that do you ever work with trades companies?
Yes, actually, I'm like my Rolodex is flipping through
Right.
a mechanical engineering firm in our area. I did work with right as COVID hit and during COVID some because they were, emergency necessary. What was the term that was done?
Essential workers.
Essential. Thank you. Yeah, they were essential
Yeah.
workers. So I mean, yeah, they're looking are in the process of establishing their company as the top in the region for mechanical engineering.
Yeah. I just think sometimes because tradespeople are going into people's homes and properties and businesses, and those people that are doing those things, it matters what your truck looks like, what the dashboard looks like, what the inside looks like, if your uniform's clean, if you take your shoes off. I mean, that makes a huge difference in the professionalism of your company. And that training is really important because the bosses aren't always on every job with their employees that are going out into people's homes.
Yeah, exactly. And that was kind of the hum when I did work for a concrete company, part of their leadership day. A lot of the questions came from the guys that were in their shops, basically, where the customer, so they were client facing, and a lot of them were women who were coming in. A lot of women hold purse strings in a home or the buying decisions and so forth. So in that sense, I know some of the comments I heard afterwards, they were so thankful of like, they didn't feel like they could make eye contact with women. They didn't know how to shake their hands, along with how to press, how they're in a concrete company, they're going to be casual, but, clean and neat and good soft skills, polished soft skills, and feeling comfortable with that. So,
right.
It's really important to recognize those things about, especially the customer. I was working with a client that was thinking of hiring this new sales gentleman, and the sales gentleman had the tattooed sleeves and the gauge earrings, and there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. He had a beard, he was bald, and he was a great guy. But I asked my client, who's your average client, right? When you start looking at your demographics, and it's 60-year-old women. And I'm like, honest to goodness, would the 60-year-old woman feel comfortable opening the door to this salesperson if they don't know him in advance? Because he was a great guy. There's nothing wrong with the sleeves, and there's nothing wrong with this person's appearance. But when you start thinking of how do I introduce this to my clients, it's very important because right, wrong, or indifferent, there's people that won't open the door for that person, if especially it's a sales call. It's not we've met somewhere in the office first and then coming. So it's just interesting things to keep in perspective. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that would back into like thinking again in that launch session and so forth for me, really thinking like your audience. And part of that is like the generation that they're from. I'm working on a proposal right now for a company, and that's a big part of it. They want it for their new hire, soft skills, because most of the clientele that they have are older baby boomer. And so there's a breakdown, so they want to bridge that gap.
Lots to bridge in that area. There is a lot to bridge in our outgoing and incoming employees and our client base. And we could have a full conversation on that all day long. But one last thing, Callie, what are you excited about? What are 2023 and beyond? What are you excited about in your business?
I'm excited that training's coming back more. Like it was pretty quiet there for a couple of years. So I didn't realize I'm an introvert, and I never would have ever dreamt that I love to speak.
You're good
Not
at
in
it.
a bazillion years. But I don't know. It's like, getting up and giving a performance. And I guess, I don't know. I was in choir and band and all that kind of stuff in school.
Yeah.
So I would say that, yeah, that was just exciting to see that return to
I love
some
it.
live in-person training.
I
Yep.
love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us today for some tips and best practices. And of course, how to contact you will be included into our show notes that we prepare. But thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for taking time out of your day to be a guest. And we certainly enjoyed the conversation. And God, like I said, I can think of 1,000 other things to say.
Well, thank you, ladies. I appreciate the opportunity very much. I always love sharing about what I do. Like I said, business with a passion became a real business. So
Yeah. Yeah.
thank
This
you,
has
both
been
of
great.
you.
Yeah. It's been really nice getting to know you, Kelly. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Hopefully I'll see you
Likewise,
out.
Amy.
Yeah. See you out and about networking. And hopefully we'll get to catch you on the stage somewhere soon.
That sounds wonderful. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Yep. And thank you to our listeners again for coming on another Adventures with Business with Lisa and I. We appreciate you. We release episodes every Wednesday. You can find them at zediamedia.com or wherever you listen to your podcasts. We appreciate you. Have a great day. And as always, go out and make it an adventure.